You would never in 1,000 lifetimes ever think of me and New Jack ever. If there was ever two wrestlers in the history of wrestling who were more opposite of human beings, it's me and Jerome. But he was always cool to me, man. Like, I'll tell you a little story. You go back and watch. There was a pay-per-view in Chicago. I believe it was Anarchy Rules. And me and Chris Chetty were wrestling DeVito and I think Simon Diamond. And I want to say at the end of the match, there was going to be like maybe it was Lance Diamond and somebody else. But at the end of the match, there was going to be like a schmozz, and New Jack was going to come in and bounce the baldies around or something. But in the first 30 seconds of this match, Chris Chetty, who had already had a back issue before, his back basically went out of him. He was paralyzed from the waist down. He couldn't move. He was literally laying on the ground outside of the ring, underneath the ring apron, and he looked at me and goes, "I can't feel my legs." This is live pay-per-view on national TV, and at that point, I knew how to work hard. I didn't know how to work smart yet, and I really couldn't call on the fly. So I just looked at Jazz, and I'm like, "Hey, jump up on the apron." So long story short, we wind up having this match. It got kind of clustered a little bit. Well, at the end, New Jack comes out. They were just trying to salvage anything. They had New Jack come out, glom the heels. There's some weapons laying on the ground. I pick them up. I'm beating the shit out of heels with him. I high-five him, all that. When we get in the back, he looked at me and he said, "Hey," because that was his time to go out there and shine and get his shit in. So in theory, he could have hit me too. He could have beat up the bad guys. He could have hit me. He could have bounced. He told me, he goes, "I could have bounced you too, Nova." And I said, "Well, look, Jack," I said, "I didn't mean." He knew me too. He knew I was just trying. At this point, my friend's on the ground paralyzed. There's somebody in the ring fighting the bad guys. He's outnumbered. Of course I'm going to pick up the stuff and help him. It's totally, what are we going to do? But he was cool. He was like, "Look, I would never do that to you, man. I'm just trying." I agreed with him 100%. I was, "You're absolutely right, Jack." He was a true character in and out of the ring. He's what made ECW. It never would have worked anywhere else except ECW. It wouldn't have worked in WCW, WWF, none of that. Like, when you think of ECW, like, you have to think of him at the top of the list. And I thought he was, look, I know somebody's going to bastardize and crucify us for this, Colton, but I know he had a colorful past. I know there's some things, this and that. I get all that, man. Whether you want to talk about mass transit, Gypsy Joe, all that kind of stuff, but I learned a long time ago, and this might not be a popular thing to say, but most of my wrestling career, I judged people on how they treated me. Not always how they treated everybody else. And that's not a popular thing to say sometimes, because there's some people out there who were scumbags to everybody. And it's like, oh man, but Jack was always cool to me, man. Here's the thing. I never saw New Jack instigate a fight. I saw him get in a bunch of fights, but he never instigated it. Like, for whatever reason, people would, like, mess with him. Like, I didn't get it. But, yeah, I mean, I saw one time he got in a fight in Queens. I was just talking about this the other day. He got in a fight in Queens with Pitbull Anthony. God rest both of their souls. And the Elks Lodge is real condensed upstairs, nowhere to sit. Everybody's crammed together. There's a bunch of weapons up in his locker room, too, the fans brought. I remember there being like a car bumper and some other stuff. I remember these two fighting, like legitimately fighting in the locker room, and we had the Great Sasuke in. The Great Sasuke, all I remember is looking over and seeing the Great Sasuke. It was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He's in a mask, in a suit. He's got an actual suit on. He has his mask, and he has like wrist tape on. And he's sitting there watching these two punch each other and fight. He's going like, no, 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 like trying to break it up. And I just remember like them getting separated and just looking at the look on Sasuke's face like, what in the world is going on here? So I watched Pitbull Anthony and New Jack fight in a locker room in Queens while the Honorable Great Sasuke looked on in horror.